Hi guys, it's Crystal. I hope you guys are all doing well today. It's a little bit snowy and blowy, so maybe you guys have gone outside and did some snow activities. I hope you guys have all had a good week. And if you're doing that remote learning, guys, keep on keeping on. We're doing the best that we can, and we're being as supportive as we can. And hopefully you guys are doing okay and not getting too overwhelmed with it, because I know it can be tough. If you're new to this channel, like I said, my name is Crystal, and I do Canadian true crime, or true crime with a Canadian twist. Now, at various times in the year, I probably will be just talking about crimes specific to other nationalities, but for the most part, I do Canadian true crime. So hopefully you guys will like this video. I hope that you subscribe to my channel, ring the notification bell. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, and talk to me, guys. Hopefully you'll leave me some comments. I love to hear what other people have to think, especially if it's a theory that I didn't think of at that point in time. And if you guys are returning subscribers, you guys already know I love you and that I'm so thankful to have you. Today, we're going to be talking about crimes that occurred in Newfoundland and Labrador. So if you guys are not from Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador are one province. Most of the time in our story, you're going to be hearing me refer to just Newfoundland. This crime didn't have anything to do with Labrador. So I'll just be saying Newfoundland, just so I don't have to say Newfoundland and Labrador so much. Also, these videos, guys, are for entertainment purposes or educational purpose only. And if you guys do want to leave a comment, please, no hate. There's enough hate in the world today, and we're just talking about things and having conversations. So today, we're going to be talking about a woman named Cortney Lake. Cortney Lake was born February 12th of 1993, and she lived in St. Lawrence, Newfoundland. Now, this is in the Burin Peninsula, and there's only about 1,192 people that live there. So it's a pretty small town. She lived there with her mom, Lisa, her dad, Sean, and her brother, Colin. She was also extraordinarily close to her maternals, the more maternal side of her family. The whole family was very family oriented, and they spent a lot of time together, but she was particularly close to her grandma, Anne Lynch, who she said was like a second mother to her. And she was also particularly close to her aunts, Glenda and Donna, which are Lisa's sisters. At some point in time, Lisa and Sean's marriage broke down. So Lisa, Colin, and Cortney then moved to Mount Pearl. Now, Mount Pearl is the second largest city actually in Newfoundland and Labrador. So it's a very large place. There were a lot of people that lived there. And the maternal residence, of course, was in Mount Pearl. I believe Sean stayed in St. Lawrence because it seems like Cortney also went back to St. Lawrence on various occasions. St. Lawrence is only about 34 minutes away from Mount Pearl. Sorry guys, I have to refer to my notes today. There's very specific timelines in this, so I just want to make sure I'm getting all the dates and everything correct. So sometime in Cortney's late teens, she met a man named Jason Pike, and they met at an event in St. Lawrence, and they started dating shortly after. Now, Jason is about 10 years older than Cortney, so he was more established as an adult at this time. Cortney was still a teenager. So though the two of them dated for 4 years and they did have a son together, I believe he was born in 2011 and his name is Oliver, they started to drift apart. Jason says that particularly after Oliver was born, the relationship grew a little bit rocky. So the two of them started to drift apart. Obviously, Cortney's becoming more mature. I think she's becoming more opinionated, and maybe her and Jason just didn't mesh as well as they had before. So they did split up. But by 2017, the two of them were able to successfully co-parent. They were very good parents to their son. And Jason did say of their breakup, though, that she was battling her own personal demons at this point in time as well. So that is a direct quote. He did say that. I'm not totally sure what he's talking about with regards to this, but he did say she was battling her own personal demons at this point in time. But like I said, by 2017, successful co-parents. Now, Oliver primarily lived with Jason. It could be due to the fact that Cortney was still so young and not as established professionally. So therefore, Cortney would FaceTime him every day. They were an extremely close family, even though they didn't live together. She contacted her son all the time. She loved her son very, very much. In 2013, Cortney actually made history. She applied to become a contestant for the the Miss Newfoundland and Labrador beauty pageant. She was the first single mother to ever do this. She didn't win, but she did make history because she's the first single mother to have ever competed in the competition. At some point in time, she started to date a man named Philip Smith. Now, Philip Smith was an Army reservist. He was about a year older than her. I don't know a lot about him, but I do know he has blonde hair, and that he was approximately a year older than her. This was not a good relationship, guys. This was an extraordinarily tumultuous and abusive relationship for Cortney. Now we're going to get into some really specific things, guys. So we're going to be doing dates and times. Boom, boom, boom. It may be a little bit fast. Hopefully, I'm saying everything as respectfully as I can. So on April 15th of 2017, Smith assaulted Cortney for sure. Her mother, Lisa, reported it 2 days later to the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary. I am so bad at saying that word, guys. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but constabulary, that's what I would say. So we're going to refer to them as the NRC. It's just easier instead of me having to say constabulary a million times. So we're going to call them the NRC, and they're the major police force for Newfoundland and Labrador. So Lisa contacted them and told them about the assault and the altercation. When they came to interview Cortney, she did say the altercation occurred when she went to go exit Smith's truck. He didn't want her to leave, so she said he punched her in the stomach and the arm. She complained of having a bump over her left eyebrow, a sore arm, and she had cuts to her bottom lip, the inside of her bottom lip as well. And Cortney did the right thing, guys. I want you guys to know this. Cortney did everything that police will tell assault victims and that domestic violence counselors will also tell domestic assault victims. She contacted the police about the assaults, so she left a paper trail that way, and she alerted them to the fact that he was doing these things. She got emergency contact orders against him so that he could not contact her. And she also got peace bonds. She was not the only one that got peace bonds. Lisa, her mother, also got peace bonds against Philip Smith. She did everything she was supposed to do to make sure that this man couldn't contact her. And if he did, that there would be a record of it on file. You guys know that unfortunately, a lot of times emergency contact orders and peace bonds are basically just pieces of paper. Police cannot, and they're bound to this by law. Police can't do anything until an actual assault is already in progress, or when this person is actually stepping over the line of a peace bond. So if I called an officer up and I said, oh, you know, I see my ex's car, he's 2 houses down from me. Okay, well, he's not actually on my property. Police will only say, police will say, please contact us again. Thank you for contacting us, but please contact us again when he is in your immediate area. Because until then, he hasn't broken the peace bond, or she. We're talking about assault. It's not just strictly a female thing. Domestic violence happens to males too, and I want people to remember that as well. But Cortney did everything she could. I know specifically about things like this. This is leaving a partner, an abusive partner, historically and statistically, one of the most dangerous times for a woman is just after they've left the abusive partner. Okay. It's not necessarily when you're in it and dealing with the abuse at the time. It's statistically when a person leaves. I know of two such instances of this in my own life. I had a cousin. She was my second cousin. She was my mother's first cousin. And she had left her common law partner. I believe he was her common law partner. They may have been married. This was quite a few years ago, guys. She left him. She had to go to his house and retrieve an item that one of her children needed for school. And she actually took her dad with her. So she did the right thing. Regardless, her ex-partner shot her and then himself. So they both died that day, right in front of my uncle. He did this. Another example is that my mom had a really good friend. They worked together. The really good friend was also the mother, I know this is going to get complicated, the mother of my brother's best friend at the time. She left her husband. Her husband called her on the phone, told her that he was going to go get help. He needed a ride to the hospital. When he arrived at her door, she opened it and he shot her in the chest and the head because he shot her in the chest. He had told her that he wanted her to drive him to the hospital. That's why he came to her house. So he shot her. Then he took off to one of the provincial parks that was in the area of where we were living and shot himself as well. So there are many, many more examples of just showing how dangerous this point in time can be for a woman. So on May 5th, Lisa says that she got a phone call from Smith. And this is a phone call she regrets taking. He said that he was going to kill himself. I don't know why he contacted Lisa unless he kind of wanted Cortney to find out. But anyway, he said he was going to kill himself. Lisa is riddled with guilt about this phone call. She feels like if she had ignored this phone call or not said anything to anybody about this phone call, then the events that we're going to get into would not have taken place. But regardless, he was a human being. She was concerned. So she called his sister and his sister called the RNC. Initially, they were able to locate Philip. They could see his black GMC Sierra truck and he had blonde hair. Like I said, he was wearing sunglasses. It's short blonde hair. It'd be like more of a military style haircut. So they located him, but he saw them. So he took off and led them on like a chase, so to speak. They did at one point in time lose him, but they were able to locate him. Just give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to get the actual spot. Near a pond on Peacekeeper's Way, which is in Conception Bay. So they were able to find him. And at this point in time that they found him, he was actively hurting himself. I'm not sure to what extent he was doing things. I don't know if he was cutting his wrists but he was actively hurting himself at this point in time. So police did put handcuffs on him and they took him to a health facility in St. John's to be treated. He was in the hospital for about 4 days at this point in time, but he did recover from the suicide attempt. Cortney during this time did absolutely have the peace bonds established. So he was not allowed to have contact with Cortney or with her mom, Lisa, at this point in time, definitely for sure. So on May 8th, Smith submitted an application to the courts. He wanted 2 things from his charges changed. Number 1, he wanted to be able to use his vehicle to drive back and forth to work. They had suspended his license when they arrested him. Remember, he was arrested. Sorry, guys, I've got a really itchy nose. Sorry. He was arrested on the May 8th date. On the May 5th date. Sorry, guys. He wanted them to let him have his license back for driving back and forth to work, just for driving to work. And he actually wanted them to allow him to have contact with Cortney. He said, and I quote, to continue their relationship, end quote, and quote, we love each other very much. End quote. Now, they did give him the ability to drive back and forth to work and for work, but they obviously denied his request to be able to contact Cortney. On May 15th, On May 15th, Smith actually, through Facebook, sent Cortney's new boyfriend nude images of her without consent. This was obviously done without consent. When Cortney had sent these images to Smith, the two had been dating, and she thought that this was something just for him, that he wouldn't share it with anybody else. Obviously he did. He shared it with her new boyfriend. Cortney was very angry, and she contacted police about this, just as she should have done. This is distributing intimate images without the other person's knowledge or without their consent. Despite the police bonds, okay, and the emergency contact orders, Smith contacted Cortney 33 times on June 5th. 33 times, guys, in one day. So he completely ignored everything. It's like it didn't register in his mind. She called the police, obviously, about this. And while they were responding to the call, another call came in from her saying that Smith was at her family residence. So this would be the familial home in Mount Pearl. Cortney actually lived on Wellington Crescent in a residence by herself, but this was the family home. So he quickly took off, obviously. So by the time police got there, he was not there, but they were able to locate him like a couple houses down, and they arrested him for this, obviously. I'm hoping that the police responded very fast to this, guys. Excuse me, just one second. I think in cases like this, whereas there's a definite pattern to the abuse, but also to the harassment, police should be more cognizant of it, especially if they're getting more than one phone call. They got two phone calls at once. So I hope that they were there with the lights and the sirens on. I believe that they should do this in every case of assault, especially established assault, because it could save lives, guys. It definitely could save lives. I know that the police are bound by laws, though. I don't want you guys to think that the police weren't doing everything they could in this case, because they actually were. I don't have complaints against police in this case. I'm just saying that I wish some of the laws were a little less rigid, and that people could actually get the help they needed as soon as they needed it. Now, June 6th was actually an awful day for Cortney. I'm not completely sure how he did it, but Smith was in contact with her. I don't know if it was from a couple days prior, but he was in contact with her, and he told her to come and get her things. Cortney specifically wanted the handmade ornaments that she had left at his house. Now, for Cortney, Christmas was the biggest time of year. She loved Christmas more than anything. She loved Christmas. She loved her family. She loved being with her family at Christmas. She wanted these handmade ornaments. They meant a lot to her. So she did the right thing once again. Cortney took her mother and her mother's fiance with her to his house. Now, he lived on 22 Alice Drive in St. John's. When they pulled up to his residence, her things were in boxes on his front yard, and they were set on fire, guys. He was burning her things, probably just to show her. But anyway, the ornaments were not in the boxes. Smith had kept them himself. June 7th is the biggest day in particular. And June 7th of 2017 started out as a normal day for Cortney. She and Jason took Oliver to his weekly swimming lessons. And then Jason dropped her off at the familial home, at her mother's home in Mount Pearl. And she visited with them for the afternoon. Another person then gave her a ride home to her Wellington Crescent address. But it was not a good day, guys, for Smith. So I'm just going to make sure I get all the charges right. So he appeared in court on June 7th, and he was facing the charges for assaulting Cortney. He was facing the charges for, I believe, breaking the peace bond. He was facing the charges for the nude photographs, and he was facing driving related charges. So he pled guilty to assaulting Cortney, and he received a suspended sentence. Now, before I guess we get too upset, guys, this was his first criminal offense. He had no criminal record prior to this. So he pled guilty, and you know that from previous cases, remember when we talked about Amuzi Kakasik, because he pled guilty, they went easier on him. So he acknowledged his guilt, so he received a suspended sentence for that. For distributing the intimate images without the consent of the other person, he got another suspended sentence. He pled guilty to that, and he also pled guilty to various driving offenses that he had racked up. He was convicted of breaching a peace bond with respect to Cortney and to Lisa, and he received 2 days for that. Yeah, I know. He received 2 days for that charge. However, it was time spent because he was in jail from the 5th to the 7th, so technically it was already time spent. And a number of charges were withdrawn by both the Crown and the defense, because both the Crown and the defense agreed, quote, that he was currently in the middle of a crisis, end quote. Now, according to, and because he had no prior criminal records, so that's why they went so much easier on him. The judge also agreed with him currently being in the middle of a crisis as well. So his lawyer says that he was, quote, remorseful for these actions, end quote, and that he was, quote, in an unhealthy relationship, and his intention is to follow the conditions and have no further contact with Ms. Lake, end quote. This is what his lawyer said. Now, while he was leaving the court, he was actually given a probationary order to definitely stay away from both Cortney and Lisa. However, he text messaged Cortney as soon as he left court that day. So obviously he had every intention of contacting her, but he contacted her and told her that if she wanted to get her Christmas ornaments, he would come and pick her up. They would go to his place together. I'm assuming Cortney doesn't drive. I'm not quite sure. Because it does seem like, or maybe she didn't own a car, but that he was going to come and pick her up. They would go to his house together. They would go through these items. So maybe he had some thrown in there as well. I'm not sure. And that he would drive her back home that night. This is according to her mom and according to text messages the police have between the two of them, between Smith and Cortney. 4 hours after Smith left court, Cortney was seen leaving her house, and this is through security cam footage from the neighborhood, but also from various businesses, and dash cam footage. So this is definitely demonstratable, guys. They know exactly when and where. Cortney was seen getting into the passenger side of Smith's black GMC Sierra truck. This GMC Sierra truck also had a Browning camouflage deer head decal on the passenger side back window. And police could see, and the public could see that Cortney left her home at 7:52 p.m. And I just want to get the exact dates right. So on the 7th, of course, and walked toward the area of Lindbergh Crescent and Ruth Avenue. At 7:54 p.m., she was seen walking down the street when Smith pulled up beside her. She got into the passenger side of his truck. He turned around and went back in the opposite direction, or like he swung around and went in the opposite direction. And of course, like I said, we know this is specific. We know this is sure because of the security cam footage and the dashboard cam footage. Cortney was 24 years old. Yeah, 24, guys, at the time of her disappearance, and she left one son. She was last seen wearing a gray, I'm really having problems today, sorry guys, a gray and white Helly Hansen jacket with pink trim, a multicolored plaid shirt, black yoga pants, and dark gray and white Nike sneakers with hot pink laces. She was also wearing her glasses, and she has light brown hair. She was also carrying a Guess purse, and the Guess purse had a matching wallet with it. She was about 5'8" and at the time of her disappearance, and she was also between 110 and 120 pounds, so somewhere in that time, in that weight frame. Cortney has not been seen since June 7th of 2017. But before you think that the story is over, guys, it gets worse. Lisa has definitely struggled with the question as to why Cortney, despite the peace bonds, despite the assaults, despite the emergency contact orders, despite him burning her things, she struggled with why Cortney would get into his truck and leave with him. One can only think that these ornaments meant so much to her that she thought she would be okay in leaving with him. She probably also thought that he would bring her back. Now, Lisa says for sure she definitely had every intention of coming back home that night. So once police were notified about Cortney's disappearance, because obviously they have a lot of information from people, but they also have a lot of information from the prior 2 months. Once they were notified about this, they interviewed her friends, her family, and Jason Pike. Now, Jason was a good guy. Jason was very helpful during the whole entire process. He let them search anything that they wanted to, including his own truck. And obviously, Jason was not a suspect. He was quickly cleared of this crime. And he actually, after they cleared him, made a public plea asking for help finding Cortney. He just wanted information on where she was. Jason was very, very worried, and if anybody had any information, please come forward and help find Cortney. He said that Cortney would have never run away because running away was, quote, not her style, especially since she had Oliver, and she was FaceTiming him every day. He says she definitely would not have run away. From these interviews, police were able to ascertain what Cortney had done the day of the 7th for sure. And of course they had the video surveillance and the dash cam surveillance. So they were also, security footage. I shouldn't say video surveillance, security video footage. They had all this. So they were able to put together her day fairly well and fairly easily. And like I said before, they do have the text messages between Smith and Cortney from the 7th as well. Friends and family quickly started a social media campaign to help find Cortney, and it was actually called #HelpFindCourtney. Yes, I'm correct about this. Sorry. Yes, sorry. And police received many, many, many tips. And they also checked her social media to see if there was anything of interest or if anything that would help them in her disappearance case. But they didn't find anything of value on the social media. So they canvassed the Alice Drive area, the neighborhood, to see what the neighbors of Smith might know. The neighbors said that they hadn't seen Cortney for about 3 weeks, although they did acknowledge that prior to the 3-week time period, they had seen her numerous times in the past month. Police did search properties in the area of 22 Alice Drive, and they found nothing. They also released more stills from the dashboard cam footage and the security footage, specifically from an Esso station that was on Elizabeth Avenue in St. John's. So that must have been a really big piece of evidence for them. It was done to generate more leads, but this footage also showed Cortney buying a few items just prior to her disappearance. That way, obviously the public would have a really good picture of how Cortney looked as well. So like I said, nobody on Alice Drive had seen anything. I believe they also were asking for their security cam footage as well. Oh, I'm sorry guys, this is a really thirsty one. Vigils were held all through that June to keep at least 3 big ones, to keep Cortney's face and disappearance within the public eye. On June 27th, Police saw Smith drinking at a Jack Astor bar, or a Jack Astor restaurant, bar and grill, in St. John's. They then followed him and watched him buy beer. So they arrested him because this was a breach of the conditions of his bail, so to speak. He wasn't allowed to be in a place that served alcohol. So they arrested him. On June 28th, police were able to get a warrant to search the 2-unit home that he owned with his dad. So this would be 22 Ellis Drive, the 2-unit home. They wouldn't confirm if the search had anything to do with Cortney herself or her disappearance. They just had a search warrant. They did remove a number of items from the residence as well, and they also took his truck. But his truck was returned to him, and I believe it was the next day. Inspector Tom Warren, who actually headed Cortney's case, then called Lisa, I believe on the 29th. It was the 29th, I believe, of June that he called Lisa. And this was at about 10:32 p.m. And he said, and I quote, "Lisa, we haven't found her, but we know she was murdered," end quote. He said he couldn't reveal at that time who the person was that did this, because it was an active investigation, guys. They can't do that. You guys know that if it's an active investigation, there's a number of cards they have to hold close to them, just so it won't compromise the investigation as well. But he did say, quote, "This person had court orders to stay away from her," end quote. So Lisa knew immediately that it was Smith. Billboards also went up at the during this point in time in St. John's with Lisa's face on them and her identifying characteristics, and telling that she was missing, so they could garner more tips from the public. And the family made posters to put up around St. John's and probably Mount Pearl, and I would assume maybe St. Lawrence as well at this point in time. Oh, I'm really sorry, guys. I can't talk today, and I am just having a time. On June 30th, police did hold a press conference in Cortney's disappearance, and they stated that it was now an active homicide case. They had handed the case over to the Major Crimes Unit in Newfoundland and Labrador to look into this case. They knew it was an active homicide. They also said that they had, quote, "identified more than one person of interest," end quote. And then they released more video footage from the 7th showing Cortney leaving her home and getting into the truck. And this was, of course, security camera footage from neighborhoods. Police believed that Cortney was taken into one of several locations. They believe she was either taken into a place that was really secluded. They believed she could have been taken into the woods, or she was taken into an area that was not well traveled. So they did search areas matching this description around St. John's, but they didn't come up with anything. They also volunteers. There were a lot of volunteers that came out, guys. They came out of everywhere, and they were technically called, Cortney's Search Angels. And they had a GoFundMe page as well to raise money to help with the search effort. Like, volunteers searched very long and very hard for Cortney, and so did the police. They tried very hard to locate this woman. Sadly, Lisa herself said she no longer believes in emergency contact orders or peace bonds. And I've heard a number of women say this, especially if someone has assaulted them after a peace bond. And I've also heard a number of family members saying this. She said, quote, "In my opinion now, from what I've seen, a peace bond isn't worth the paper it's written on," end quote. And like I said, guys, this is not a police problem. This is written into the laws in Canada that a perpetrator has to be in the act of victimizing the victim before police can do anything about it. But I do want people to understand to please take out the peace bonds, take out the emergency orders if you guys are being assaulted or know somebody that's being assaulted. Call in every assault. Please leave a paper trail. It is very important to do so. On July 2nd, searchers did come across an item that belonged to Cortney. I'm not sure what this item was, but it was in a place called Torbay Man's Pond. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry, guys. From what it's written out like, it sounds like Torbay Man's Pond, which is just west of St. John's. Police, once again, conducted an exhaustive search of the place, including dragging the water of the pond, but they didn't find anything else of value. Smith, however, couldn't keep himself out of trouble. He was accused of committing more crimes on June 7th, the day that Cortney disappeared, and I think they were obviously in regards to Cortney. And these included driving while prohibited, because remember, he was only supposed to be going back and forth to work, and breaching a peace bond. But this was in relation to Lisa, to contacting Lisa. So, of course, he's in more trouble. On August 9th, Smith did plead guilty to breaching the condition meant to keep him away from Cortney. He pled guilty to it, guys. He acknowledged, he acknowledged and admitted to picking Cortney up on June 7th, but he wouldn't say where they went, and he wouldn't tell people when he last saw her. He also pled guilty to drinking while prohibited. Remember, he wasn't supposed to be in a drinking establishment, and he was drinking. And he pled guilty, and he received a 90-day sentence for this. However, it was reduced to 24 days because of time served. So he had been in jail from the 28th arrest, I believe, until the 9th. So, of course, it was reduced 24 days because of time served, and it was further reduced. So basically he only got 16 days because they let him out on good behavior. So he was let out on August 24th. He also got a 1-year driving suspension, and he was interviewed numerous times by the police, but he didn't tell them anything. In the fall, Smith was actually relieved of his military duties due to his crimes. You guys know that in Canada, for sure, I believe it's in the States as well, that if you have criminal charges against you, or if you were convicted of criminal charges, you can't be in the military. So the board convened and they relieved him of his military duties at that time. Now, despite the fact that he had never served overseas, he was a corporal for the Army Reservists, and he was a primary reservist. I'm not sure what that is, but I think that means you're in a higher class than the other reservists. And he was with the 37th Combat Engineering Regiment in St. John's. So a review was to take place later on to decide whether they should fully discharge him or not. On October 31st, 2017, Smith called his family and told them that he was going to kill himself. They then called police. Now, police alerted searchers to a specific spot in Bellevue. This was just to be on standby. They alerted them to be on standby for this specific spot in Bellevue because the Smith family had a cabin in Bellevue, and they felt that this would be a likely place for him to come to. So at about 3:00 a.m. on November 1st, police dogs did find his body on the cabin property, and he had killed himself. Although at this point in time, that was not made public to anybody that he had committed suicide. It was just that they had found a body, and that there was no danger to the public at all. Investigators were then able to do a more thorough search of the cabin property, and of course they found nothing in relation to Cortney's case. The RNC had had a hard time, though, keeping up with Smith in the last few weeks of his life. They did interview a close friend of his who had been in contact with him in the hours leading up to his death on the 31st. And he said that his behavior was the same as it always had been. He said that he didn't show any different behavior characteristics. However, he did acknowledge that in the past year, Smith had been having a really hard time. And that he had been feeling very troubled. And he specifically cited the May 5th suicide attempt as evidence of this. The Lake family did actually send their condolences to the Smith family at this time as well. Lisa told police that Smith was due to appear in court on November 7th with regards to a peace bond that had expired. So I think they must have been talking about renewing a peace bond. And I'm assuming it was due to Lisa and Cortney. So he had been served papers for this. So she knew that on the 7th, he was definitely supposed to be appearing in court. The RNC then in November released more images of Smith and his truck, and these images were dated from the 8th of June, which is the day after Cortney went missing, in the hopes that this would jog more memories in the public and garner more tips, especially of what he was doing that day on the 8th, and if people had seen him on the 8th. They were specifically looking, once again, for dash cam or security footage. When Oliver was told about Smith's death, sorry guys, he was told by Lisa, and he said, I quote, "Well, Nanny, you know what? He won't hurt any more mommies," end quote. Tom Warren confirmed that Smith was the only suspect in Lisa's disappearance. So they knew that Smith had killed Lisa. The problem is, guys, there's no way to prove it because Smith himself died. He left no suicide note and he didn't tell police anything. So the answer of what happened to Cortney died with Smith, to where she is, to what happened to her, and to where obviously her body can be found. Lisa accepts that Cortney's dead, and Sean does too. This was extremely hard on the family because they were so close-knit. And Oliver has to grow up without the mother that he loved so desperately and was so used to talking to every day. He always wants to hear stories about Cortney in order to keep her memory alive. And it's almost like in order to stay close with her. Police, now this is a specific and important piece of information, guys. Police and the family want people involved with Smith or people that Smith spoke to around this point in time to come forward. They believe that there are people out there who are withholding information about Cortney in order to protect Smith for some reason. They said that some of the over 100 people that the RNC interviewed gave contradictory statements that were then disproven by both the video footage from the security cams and from the dash cam footage and from photographic evidence. They were able to disprove these contradictory statements that these people made. I don't know who these people are, but they are people that are connected to Smith. Some statements were, and I quote, "very deceitful of places and times, people trying to vouch for Philip, and it was later on proven to be untrue," quote, or end quote, sorry. This is a direct quote from Lisa herself. In December of 2017, police received new tips on the case. So they conducted a 2-day search of an abandoned 100-acre farm, I believe, just outside of Bellevue or just in the outskirts of Bellevue, but they didn't find anything with relation to Cortney. And on the May 24th long weekend in 2018, the Lake family actually urged campers to keep an eye out for any of Cortney's items. I'm assuming this would include the purse and wallet, but probably items of clothing she was wearing, just to once again remind the public about Cortney's case, but to also keep people on the lookout for any clue as to where she could be. But once again, nothing was turned up from this. The case is now definitely a cold case. And I think it's so frustrating to people because we know for sure Cortney is dead. Police definitely have information that would lead them to believe she is dead. Of course, we also know that police can't reveal everything in a case, especially a case that's been unsolved, because it could compromise things. The only suspect in this case is dead, and everybody knows it. The police know that Philip is the person that did this. The Lake family knows it. I'm sure Smith's family knows it himself. Friends, families, acquaintances, people all over know that Philip Smith did this, but there's no way to prove it because he died and all the answers died with him. That's why they need the people he had spoken to previous to this to come forward and admit the truth. They need them to admit the truth. You're not protecting Philip Smith anymore. He is dead. And you're also not helping a family get closure without telling the truth. So please tell the truth. Police do continue to conduct interviews and look for footage surrounding this case. They've actually reviewed hundreds of hours of video footage surrounding this case in the hopes that they'll find something that could help them locate Cortney. Everyone in the case, once again, believes that Cortney is dead. Everyone involved believes that Cortney is dead. She has not been active on social media since June 7th. Her cell phone has not been in use since June 7th, and none of her bank accounts have been accessed since June 7th. So nothing in the last 3 years. It's a little bit more than 3 years, guys. Has 3.5 years, I guess. Nothing has popped up about her on social media. She's not popped up anywhere. Every year, the family holds an annual Christmas tree lighting, and they light the tree with purple lights. Once again, to keep Cortney's disappearance in the public eye. Because purple was her favorite color. That's why they want to do that. And this event is also used to shed light on numerous issues surrounding domestic violence towards women. There is also an annual vigil held in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's held in honor of Cortney, but also in honor of other victims who have lost their lives to domestic violence. And this event is called In Her Name. Sean, who is Cortney's father, actually did erect a tombstone for Cortney. I believe he did it in 2019, guys. I could be wrong. It could have been 2018, but I believe he did it in 2019. Of course, there are no remains there, but it is a place that he can go to mourn his daughter. And once again, he also accepts that Cortney is dead. The police have said this. They must have some irrefutable proof that Cortney is no longer with us. Tips from the public are crucial to this case. They have led to a significant amount of evidence, which was able to have the investigators classify this as a homicide. So there is evidence out there that does classify it as a homicide. Of course, we can't know because of the continuance of the case. Smith was 25 at the time of his death. He was questioned numerous times by the police, like I said, but to no avail. He is and was the only suspect in this case, and police know for sure he was the perpetrator, but they need the people protecting him to come forward. So if you are a person that has known Philip Smith or maybe has talked to him or had talked to him, had talked to him, please come forward. Nobody is protecting anybody at this point in time. Both the victim and the perpetrator are dead, and a family needs some answers, so please come forward. So now we're going to get into my opinion. But if you just give me 1 second, guys, I'm going to bring up a picture of Cortney. Oh. Guys, I'm hoping you can see this fairly well. That's Cortney right there with her glasses. She's actually wearing a plaid shirt too. I know it doesn't show up too well. And I'm going to bring up a picture of Philip Smith as well. This is Philip Smith. Now that looks like it's during a police interview, so that's Philip Smith right there, guys. So hopefully if you guys have seen anybody matching Cortney's description or anybody that looks like the picture, please let police know. You guys know you can contact the RCMP. You can contact the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary. You can contact your own police force and see if they can forward the information, or you can contact Crime Stoppers, guys. That really is one of the best ways to do things because it's completely anonymous. You never have to give your name. And if you guys know of anybody, or if you yourself are a victim of domestic violence, please contact police. Please leave a paper trail. I know that a lot of people don't believe in these things, but you're not protecting anybody or doing yourself any help if you don't try to get help. It's very hard for abuse victims, guys. It's very hard because we feel like victims of abuse often feel like they have to protect the abuser. They don't want to get that person in trouble. They don't want the embarrassment. So a lot of the times they won't let people know what's going on. There are national domestic violence hotlines that people can call. Almost every big city, almost every city has a shelter system in place. You can check. There are hundreds and hundreds of websites that are devoted to these things. If you need help or if you know somebody who needs help, I know you can't force a person to get help, but just float these ideas out there and hopefully, guys, we can save some lives. So with respect to this case, there are no theories. Obviously, Philip Smith did this. What I want to focus on with you guys is, what do you think of the assault laws in Canada? What do you guys feel that laws in Canada need to be changed in order to protect victims more? Do you think that the domestic violence laws are okay here in Canada? Do you think more work needs to be done? Do you agree with the fact that you would hope that the police would get there as fast as you can? What do you think about the fact that the police have their hands tied, guys, in the event they basically need to see a perpetrator in the middle of victimization? Do you think the laws regarding domestic violence and domestic assault should be changed? Do you think that the laws involving peace bonds, because a lot of the times they only last for a year, emergency contact orders, I think, can last for even less. If I'm wrong, please let me know, guys. But a lot of the times they have to be renewed. I feel like it's every year, but I think there's some cases it's every 2 years, every 3 years, and every 5 years. I think it depends on the brutality of the crime. What do you guys think about that? Should there be such a thing as a permanent no contact order? Should there be such a thing as a permanent peace bond? What do you guys think of peace bonds in general? I know that this is a polarizing debate, and I do want people to keep in mind that there's just as many men that can be assaulted domestically as well. It's not just a crime that happens to women, although I do think that it happens to a lot more women than men, but men are less likely to report being victims of domestic violence due to the fact that there's still such a stigma surrounding it. What do you guys think about funding? Should we have funding in place for shelters? Should there be more funding allotted to this problem? It seems like a very big problem. We just talked about this a few weeks ago with Sherry Furtuck as well. Once again, killed by her ex-husband who had abused her. Do you think that more funding needs to come out to have better programs? Do you think that there should be more advertisement, if you will? I know it's harder to do that. Do you think that things should be more accessible to women? A lot of the times women feel, and men, that they have no place to go, especially if they have kids. That can be really hard. You're forced out of your family home. I know that there's a large system of underground, and I know that sometimes it can be harder for people to research. So do you think that there should be more time and effort devoted to domestic abuse itself? Do you think there should be more resources devoted to issues surrounding domestic violence? I do believe so. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of peace bonds myself, or of emergency contact orders, just from the 2 previous cases I've given you from my own life. But I also know that, in some cases when it's criminal harassment or harassment, to such an extent the person's calling you over and over and over again or texting you or anything like that, the police a lot of the times will write it down, but then, you have to have a paper trail. It's almost like the first time this happens, it's like, oh, okay, it's a one-off. Then the second time, the third time, the fourth time. If you have these peace bonds or emergency protective orders, especially since there has been a significant number of calls, it helps your case a little bit more. It shows evidence of what happens. It leaves a paper trail. It can be incredibly frustrating to call the police and say such and such has harassed me and they don't know anything about it, particularly if it's another police branch. And then you have to tell them, oh, I called on this date, this date, this date, this date. It almost would seem to me that it would be a better option, particularly in repeated phone calls, that the police would be able to give you a peace bond instead of forcing you to go by way of court, because some people won't go to the courts. For some people, it takes too long. Some people are too afraid. So I believe that, 2-3 times this person is called about the same specific person, police should be allowed or able to issue peace bonds or emergency contact orders. But that's just my belief. I know this was a heavy case today, guys, and please, if you have any information at all about Cortney Lake, please contact the RCMP, contact Crime Stoppers, contact the police, and let's try to bring Cortney home, guys. That is it for today's video. I know it was a little long-winded and I know I had to look at my notes some. Once again, I hope that if you guys liked this video and you're new to this channel, that you'll press that old like button, you'll hit the old subscription button, you'll hit the notification button. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that you'll leave me comments. Tell me what you think about these laws. Tell me what you think about this case. And hopefully, guys, I will see you back next week. Bye.